Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we're going to do a review for Stones of Harlath VR, a game released on the Oculus Quest store on June 3rd, 2021. It's available for the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Quest 2. It normally retails for $9.99. I actually pre-ordered this game and I got a 10% discount for that. Stones of Harlath is scheduled to come to the Steam store on July 14th, 2021 for the Oculus Rift. Hopefully other VR headsets are supported on the Steam store. This game is developed by Garage Collective, which made Data Legion. For those of you who follow my channel, you'll know that I absolutely crapped on Data Legion, saying it wasn't a very good game, despite all the positive glowing videos on YouTube by several very popular content creators. And I did a full unedited video where I showed the problems with Data Legion. I will say the developer did contact me and they did say they did patch up the game after my review showing some of the flaws of the game, and that's always great to see, especially from a small team of developers such as the case with Garage Collective. But as you guys know, I'm going to rate the game on its merits and nothing else. Obviously price does play a factor in my final review score. So is Stones of Harlath worth getting? Unfortunately, my answer again for Garage Collective is going to be no, it's not worth getting. I understand this is a budget price dungeon crawler with a very charming pixel art style, but the gameplay loop here, the core gameplay, is pretty bad, and for that reason I just can't recommend it. Stones of Harlath is running on the Unity engine. I did not notice any performance issues on the Oculus Quest 2. You do have full locomotion and snap turning. However, I did find the snap turning to be too slow, especially for my taste as a VR veteran. I do hope they add smooth turning in the future. One thing I should mention is that you can run in this game, and when you're running, you're actually going at a pretty good pace. So hooray to the developer for at least having that in the VR game. A lot of VR developers have you always moving at a very slow rate. There is about 2 to 5 hours of content just based on your skill level. There are 6 total dungeons, and there's a semi-open world that you can traverse to get to those 6 dungeons. There's also various spells and some temporary weapon and shield upgrades that you can pick up along the way, as well as health and mana potions. There are unique boss fights at the end of these dungeons, as well as usually a new spell that you learn after you've cleared the dungeon. You change spells by these gesture-based motions. Unfortunately for me, I had trouble switching spells. Even very basic gesture movements such as drawing a triangle I had trouble with. I'm not sure why, especially since my tracking on the Oculus Quest 2 is usually pretty solid. It did make changing spells very frustrating for me to do, and for that reason, for the most part, I tried to stick with sword and board, which make the game very boring here, because unfortunately when you're using your shield and sword, you end up just wiggling your wrist in order to defeat enemies, and it's just not fun. Here the combat is just way too basic. The enemy AI is not very good. They just have some predetermined movements that they make. It makes the combat just a snooze fest, especially if you're using melee. So I do recommend using magic as much as possible if you can. However, there is even a problem with the magic use here. It really is point and click, so you have basically this mouse-like cursor as your target area, and you just have to make sure to press trigger when your target is in the enemy. So it's not a very fun targeting system. Also, you do run out of mana pretty quickly, so you will have to use melee at some points. And for me personally, I just found the gesture-based system to be unreliable, which made magic use just not make a lot of sense in a lot of areas. Some of the boss fights were pretty interesting, but as you'll see on this video, the boss fight that I do towards the end was pretty dumb. So definitely some of the boss fights are fun, but other ones are quite forgettable. I did find the hitboxes to be a little inconsistent in this game, especially when you're trying to block projectiles. Now you can play this game standing or seated, and I tried to play this game seated, but what I found out is that I was just too high on the ground, which didn't make a lot of sense. Actually, when I chose standing, I was lowered to the ground, and when you're too high on the ground, it does make blocking like the rat attacks a little bit too difficult, because you have to have your shield very low in order to block those attacks. So the combat isn't very satisfying, but almost as bad as the very basic combat here is the sounds. The sound work here is pretty awful, especially the voiceovers. The voiceovers really vary in quality. Some of them are so bad that it's actually funny, but none of them are good. A lot of the gameplay sounds are very very repetitive and you will get irritated when you hear them over and over again. The music here was nice. That was the best part of the sound work in this game, but everything else was just awful. Some of the other interactions that you do in games, such as opening doors, is really bad here as well. You basically just hover your mouse-like cursor over the door and press a button and it'll open in that way. There are loading screens in between as well. So at the end of the day, like I said, I just can't recommend this game. I don't think it's very good. I like old school dungeon crawlers. I have a lot of fun in old school dungeon crawlers. However, this game is just not as good as any of the old school dungeon crawlers I have ever played. It's just too basic, too simple, and it's just not fun at its core gameplay. I'm actually surprised this game has as many positive videos on it as there is. There are some negative ones though. So overall, if I have to score this game, and I'm gonna go by the Oculus review system, normally I go from 1 to 10. This time I'm gonna go from either 1 or 5 stars, and I'm gonna give this game a 2 stars out of 5 stars. It's not good. I don't recommend it. I know it's budget price, but it's still just not good at all, and I just couldn't recommend it to anyone. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. If you liked my video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.
I knew you would find it. This rune unlocks the power of thunder. Go see Brother Cody and tell him about the rune and where you found it. He will show you how to use it.